Well, it is now 10:30, and that means it's time for Brainstorming the Human Connection, brought to you by the South Dakota Humanities Council. My name is Lawrence Diggs. I will be your host and sometimes inquisitor. I'm trying to encourage all of you to participate in our conversation. This is really a conversation. I can ask you some questions, ergo my known to claim the fame as the inquisitor, but mostly it's about you having a conversation, not only between myself and our guest, but also between yourselves. You have your questions. Do you have comments? Do you have relevant experiences that would speak to our topic? Could you use some of the things we're going to talk about? We could brainstorm like how this information could be useful to you, because we like to give you news you can use. So anytime that you have, we can connect whatever we're talking about to something that will have an impact on your life, then that is the whole point of this exercise. We have as our guest today, Kristi Tornquist, and Kristi is the librarian at South Dakota State University. And they have, well, as you can imagine, lots of books, and they have lots of inquiries from students. And there are people who are doing very interesting research on university campuses, and much of that research doesn't ever see the light of day. They go, they get a grade for it. Their, committee challenges them on it, and if they got their master's or PhD or any other kind of research degree from that research, one is going to think, at least it's convenient to think that it has meaning to someone, because why, how could it not, right? Or anyway, there's a good chance that it does. So we're going to be talking about that research today, and we're going to be talking about maybe ways you can use it to improve your lives, to give you more clarity about what your life is like now. All of those things and more can come from this conversation. So welcome, Kristi. Thank you for being a part of our program today.
Thank you. I look forward to our conversation with you and with all the participants.
Well, let's start off by giving the 50,000-foot view of who is Kristi anyway. Tell us about your background and kind of like how you came to be the elevator speech of how you became the librarian. And then we'll go after that. We'll talk about what you actually do as a librarian there.
Okay. Well, way back as an undergraduate, I double majored in math and English, which are two very disparate subjects. And so I decided since I enjoy lots of disciplines, that maybe being a librarian would be a good choice for me. So I got a master's in library science and a doctorate in higher ed administration. I was a library director in a university in rural Arkansas for 5 years. And then I was in charge. I was a dean at St. Cloud State University for 14 years. And then I was fortunate enough to come to South Dakota State University as the dean of library here. So that's been 13 years almost.
It always surprises me when people start such illustrious careers at the age of like 9 or 10. It's always really surprising. Let's talk a little bit about what you do there now that you've reached that illustrious position. What does your day look like?
Oh, my day is mostly meetings and emails and some budget stuff and personnel stuff. Just depends on the day. So I'm
going to guess you set at least direction, if not policy, about different things the library is doing, has done, or should be doing. Tell us about that. What are the things you do at the library, at your library?
You mean me personally, or generally what we do?
No, in general. What does a library do? Let's say.
So academic library, of course, our primary focus is to support the students, staff, and faculty at our university, which you kind of referenced to, we have a lot of materials, we have a lot of books, we have a lot of electronic resources now to support both the teaching and learning and research that goes on here. But we also have a responsibility, particularly because we're a land grant institution, to meet the information needs of our community and our region and more broadly the country and the world. And so we take all those responsibilities pretty seriously.
Okay. And then if someone comes to you, they have a research project that they're doing for school, or just they want to know, what does that look like? You know, somebody who's, let's say, never been there before, they walk through your doors because they heard on this weird program on the internet that there's somebody who will help them at the SDSU library. They walk into your door and they say, "Where's that Kristi Tornquist? I want to talk to her." What, you know, because I got a problem. What's going to happen to get
Well,
them the information they want?
if they come and ask for me and they're looking for information, then I will walk them back out to the front door where we have a desk where I have people that are really super good at researching and they know our databases and they know our collection. So then if a person walked in the door, we would talk with them about what it is they're looking for and provide some search strategies and help them understand our collection if they haven't ever been in an academic library before. In particular, we'd really do some hands-on things. But also we have a lot of people approach us not by coming in the door, but they come in electronically. And then we have a chat feature on our website. And so from, I think it's like from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., we will have somebody who will be answering that chat. And we get a lot of queries that come in that way instead of people walking in the door. And many of our resources are electronic. So for the public, if you're a South Dakota citizen, you can come in the door and present a South Dakota identification, and you can check out materials here. You can pretty much do any research that one of our students or our faculty could do. If you're coming in electronically, though, through our website, you're not going to have access to all our resources, their electronic resources that way. We do, though, provide, and that's hopefully we'll get to talk about that a little, many of the things that we hold uniquely, we've digitized and provide those electronically to everyone. So our paid subscriptions, we have to limit access to those in the building or to being a university community member. But otherwise, the general public can access many of our resources, and we're happy to help them do that. And I guess I should mention one other thing. We're a depository for the United States government publications. And so with that designation or responsibility is that we provide for people that come in, we are have a responsibility, again, to help them find government documents and assist them with that.
Okay, so would that include like intellectual property, like patents or access to patent searches, or things like public domain images, soundtracks, and stuff like that? Do you guys have a line on that, or
interesting that you asked that the question about patents. We recently have requested to be part of the Patent and Trademark Office, and I'm trying to remember what the designation is called, but we would be let's call it a satellite for that, so that people have patent and trademark questions. So we are starting to go through training to provide that service. And so again, that would be to any community member that had queries.
Okay, so they could, and how about like image and media searches, like recordings, films, things from NASA, archival things from the Smithsonian or any other kind of governmental institution? Do you have at least access? I don't imagine you have all that stuff right there, but would you have access to that?
Yeah, we would definitely have access and could assist people in finding those things. Using it as intellectual property, sometimes there's restrictions on those, and so then they would have to work with the agency. Right. Typically with U.S. federal stuff, there's not restrictions, but other things. We do have a streaming media service, and so there are restrictions on how that again, anything we license, there's going to be some restrictions on content.
Right. I was really mostly thinking about the research that would come from government research, stuff that's in the, and when I say public domain, I mean that the US government owns it. Like if they do some research and then they say, like NASA images or something like that, then, can that be made available through the library there?
Yeah, yeah, we would sure be helping people with that.
Okay.
So, the electronic stuff is actually pretty much available to everybody, but often might be hard to find. And so that's where our librarians have that expertise to locate things people are looking for.
Okay, good. So with that, that's a lot of stuff that people could get. How do you support the research? Tell us a little bit more about actually what it is that you can and cannot do. And yeah, that we'll cover that one first, and then I have a follow-up question.
So if you mean like the research we would do for people, are you talking about that or?
Yeah, I guess I always have the feeling like I will say something to someone, and it's often with the assumption that they have had at least similar experiences to the ones I've had. But then I've learned, unfortunately, way too late, that a lot of people don't have that, and they have not walked into a library and they walk in and they see all of these books and they in the old days they saw little ladies with little buns on and glasses looking like that, and they turn around and walk out. So I'm thinking, okay, libraries change. Let's take a look at, like, they come in, what kind of support could they expect? For example, uh, often people will say something like, when they're looking for something, they say, oh, like Google it. And I say, well, first of all, if you're going to research something, the first thing you have to do is clarify the question. And if you don't know the question, you probably will get 30 billion answers, most of which will be irrelevant to what you're looking for. So it always occurred to me that the people behind the library desk, at least the research librarians I've worked with, they are really good at helping me to clarify the question, or at least put it in a context in which the library and or the internet can help me best. So I'm just wondering, how do you guys handle that?
Well, yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that we learn, and when we go to library school, is how to work with people on clarifying their questions. I mean, as you noted, that's really, really important. I think it's really important in a lot of aspects of life that, even I got a problem with my computer. I've got, there's all sorts of things that if you can get to the heart of what the concern is, my cable isn't working, I don't know, whatever, there's just problems people have.
Right.
But yes, we absolutely do what's called a reference interview. We try to make sure we're understanding the question. And then, people can Google things. However, there's a lot of information resources that aren't available free through the internet, free through Google, or you would find on Google. And that's where our expertise of the librarians comes into play, because we have, hundreds of databases, and which one is most appropriate, and these are paid, we have to pay for them on behalf of the university. Which ones would be best for where you want to do your search? So what is your topic area? And then we'll try to line up the right databases to do those searches in for them. We typically, at an academic library, we typically don't do the searches like in detail for people. We teach them how to do them themselves. We think that's part of our process at a university. We, help a lot of students. So just doing the research for them doesn't help them master those skills for a lifetime. So we try to help them understand tactics and directions to go, and keep giving them guidance. But we want them to learn how to do the searches themselves too.
Yeah, I would say that really applies to the general public as well, because it's more efficient, and you learn the most important thing, which may not be the question you ask, is how do I find out information about X? What are the watering holes for that kind of information? And I think that those are the kind of things, and if you work with a librarian over time, you get to, and especially if you're researching various topics, you get to understand like how to find that. And if you get that practice, you get better at it, and you get to be able to find information really fast, and it's not tedious as it is when you first start.
Well, and it doesn't hurt to make friends with a librarian, you come in the
Oh, that's
door
right.
and they'll be
Yeah, yeah.
ready to help you. Yeah.
I always found that they're among the cutest people around. When you go to the libraries, librarians, just their demeanor. But I have to say, I always remember, and I say this to contrast how libraries are today, because a lot of people, they maybe not have the same experience I had when I first went into a library, but they may have just been put off by the stiffness and coldness. It almost feels like a morgue, a like a morgue for books. But the first time I went into a library, the first thing the librarians said, "What are you doing in here?"
Oh,
So,
no.
so I said, I guess I'm not supposed to be in here. And it took me years to get over that. But later, I found out that, oh no, that was just a quirk, or there might
Yeah.
be some people like that, but there's a lot of people who really can help you. And then I started going to the library, and then I found that there was this amazing world. It's more like almost like fantasy. When you walk into a library and you start to really know how to look at a library, those stacks are just like secret passages ways to all kinds of interesting people and interesting information, and you meet some of the most interesting people at libraries, and especially now since they're, well, I'll let you talk about what kind of things are you guys doing outside of warehousing and exchanging books. I'm sure you have lots of programs. Tell us about some of those.
Well, well, I maybe want to highlight some collections too, but we absolutely have some programmatic features. Tonight we're having we have a little art gallery down in the basement, and we've hosted competitions now for a couple of years where anybody, community members, students, faculty, whoever, can submit art, and then we have them judged, and so it's kind of fun in that it's just open to anybody to submit whatever they want. It's not juried, it's not just submit your stuff. So that's been kind of fun.
Sure.
We're participating with the Killers of the Flower Moon uh, features that's going to be happening here in Brookings. So we're partnering with our English department on hosting David Gran. I'm trying to think. I have one of my people on, I think, that actually knows about our programs better than I do. Oh, we have Chuck Vollen is going to talk about, I can't remember. He's going to be speaking here in a few weeks. Emily, Mark Twain. Thank you, Emmeline. So yeah, so we'll have programs like that. The Oakwood, oh, I'm so sorry. Let's see if I can make this go away. Maybe not. Sorry, I'm gonna have to listen to the phone ring. So we have the Oakwood magazine, which is a publication that comes out of the university. We have a launch of that. That'll be happening this spring. So, and Emmeline, it looks like, very kindly is putting some of these events up so people can know about them, because I don't have the details at the top of my tongue. I wanted to mention a little bit, though, some of our very special collections, because I think that's also some features that people might be interested in. So certainly we license materials that most university libraries would have. I mean, that would not be uncommon. But we also think it's important to be sharing some of the unique resources we have here. And so I think people might enjoy either coming into the archives, this is where most of them would be held, or going online and looking at our digitized holdings for some of those resources. And
Can you give
so,
us some examples? Can you give us some
yeah,
examples of
I can talk. I've kind of tried to
collections?
put together a list just so I didn't forget things, but we have a lot of different, we have photos, we have manuscripts, we would have some film-based things. We have audio things, for example, Mrs. Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt spoke in South Dakota one time, and we have audio recordings of that, which, you know, I think people wouldn't know that we have that. We certainly have the Daschle collection, which I think maybe many people are familiar with, Senator Daschle's papers and materials, which is, you know, massive. And so still kind of getting that available. It's just so huge. Several political entities that we would have. So Ben Rifle, who was Indigenous person who served in the House of Representatives for South Dakota. Frank Denholm was also in the House. He also served in the FBI, and so we have some kind of strangely unique things in that collection. I'm trying to think what else people might be. Annie Hansen, who was an agronomist and did a lot of work in Siberia and Russia, bringing back plants that would work in that environment and see if they would work in our environment. So had a big influence on agriculture in the region. We were able to purchase a Dakota language newspaper from the 1800s. That's very unique. It was it's not available in very many places, and we digitized that so people could actually see it electronically. They didn't have to travel, you know, hundreds or thousands of miles to see it. And then maybe our kind of fun one that we have recently is our South Dakota cookbook collection, and so we accept donations for those materials. And we have hundreds of cookbooks now that are all are South Dakota based and are actually very fun to look through, I think. So for people that have interest in food and the history of food, it's a fun resource. So I'll maybe stop there. Those are examples.
Yeah, those are good examples. And we do want to leave space for people to come and actually go to the library. So we don't need to cover everything here because we got more things to cover. But at this point, I want to open it up to comments, questions, etc. We're going to be getting into like how people can use the library at South Dakota State University. That's in Brookings, in case you didn't know. But do you have any questions, comments?
And Lawrence, maybe one thing I should say, you know, SDSU has resources, but other university or college libraries would have, you know, their niche area. So, you know, people wherever they're located should, you know, maybe make some time to visit the local or more, if they're not near Brookings, they certainly would have maybe a different institution to visit.
Absolutely. Especially in universities, I find that some of the local libraries, theoretically, they have access to lots of other stuff, but often they don't have very many, let's say, convenient hours, but also they don't have much in the way of holdings. And often the people that work there, let's say, they're not in the research vein. You know, if you just say, hey, can you help me find a good book to read? They're really good at that, you know. But if you say, you know, look, I'm trying to find the difference between fission and fusion and to really understand that, and they may look at you like, where'd you park your spaceship? You know, so, because that's not their let's say it's not their sweet spot, so to speak. But so I tend to go to either large city libraries that I know and I have relationships with the people who work there, or go to a university library. And there are some things that could be very interesting for people. But anyway, we can get back to that. You have do any of you have questions? Richard, you seem to have opened up your mic. Do you have a question, comment?
Well, you know, I always have a question or a comment. It took me 3 weeks of intense study and research and queries and pouring through charts and graphs to find the answer to a simple question. How much did a cow sell for in northern South Dakota in 1930?
Yeah.
I found tons of information about the 20s, tons of information about the 30s when cows weren't worth anything.
Yeah.
But there's that sweet spot.
Yeah.
After the crash of the stock market, before the drought,
Yes.
how much did a cow sell for?
Yes.
And it took me 3 weeks. And
Wow.
I wish I had known Kristi then.
Yeah.
A lot of help from the Ag Museum and the folks over there. But I actually had to go to the Department of Agriculture and pour through their charts
Right.
to find it. So yes, thank you for this conversation we're having today. Thank you, Kristi, for taking your time. And I look forward to communicating with you in the future. I am an hour and 20 minutes from Brookings, so I doubt it will be rare that we ever get a chance to shake hands, but thank you
Yeah.
for you. And I am making a note to call you first next time.
So you would have virtually, I shouldn't go out in this far a limb, but virtually all the Department of Agriculture publications, the US ones, just because of our ag emphasis here. And our documents librarian certainly could provide some assistance, I would think, if questions like that come up again. But I want to know, how much did a cow sell for in the 1930s?
I want to go back there and buy one.
$9 a hundred.
Oh my gosh, really? Wow.
$9 a hundred in the
$9.
30s?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
How
That's-
much
that's
does a
crazy.
cow usually weigh?
They were not as weighty as they are today.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, today they're, 1,800, 2,000 plus. And back then it was, let's say 3/4 of that, because the technology and the genetics weren't there to make it. So,
Yeah.
1,500, 1,400.
Yeah. And
And
the
I
ones that
did
were
that. I'm in the process of doing the final cut on my 1930s novel.
Oh,
Oh,
there
wow.
you go.
I'll do it again.
All right.
It's
You saw it here first.
Well, let us know. We'll want a copy.
I asked an editor to go through it and dog ear the pages where they had suggestions.
You better go buy some new pencils, man.
But I'm old school. I like to do it on paper and dog ear the pages rather than doing it on Google Docs or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Vicky might have had her hand up too. I don't know.
Pardon me?
Vicky,
I
did you
did,
have a
yeah.
hand up?
I'm glad you mentioned about Googling something, and also about how to ask a question. So while you were talking, you said, well, got to learn to ask the question. I thought, well, I'll go to Google and ask them, how many think tanks do we have in the United States? And so it was like 2,932. And I thought, wow, that really is difficult for me now. But I was wondering, do you publish anything from think tanks? Or I don't know that much about them. I don't know if the government is involved, but I heard something the other day that Condoleezza Rice runs one of them. Do they correspond with the government or advise the president or his cabinet on political moves when we're knee deep in situations? I guess that's all I can ask right now.
We would most likely have publications from various think tanks if they publish. But we'd have to check any particular one that you have a question about, and then if they advise the president, yeah, I wouldn't know that off the top of my head, but it's something that we could research.
Yeah, I think along with that comes the idea that research or information is available if someone else has put it together. It's not like magic, like there's not a magic brain with all the stuff in it. And, garbage in, garbage out, even if you find a reference for it, you always have to have in the back of your mind, that's what that person said, but what is the real part? Vicki?
I have one more question. I was trying to check my family's genealogy, and I found out that Northern has a lot about Germans from Russia. Do you connect with them, or is that just one of their specialties that they have? How does that work?
Yeah, I would suggest you call them and ask what resources they have, and they could let you know if it's worth a visit or if there's something that they could copy for you and send out. But also the state library, so the state of South Dakota's library has licenses to certain products, one of which is a genealogy database. And so if you haven't had an opportunity to look at that, you sure can. You would, you need to be able to log in either with a public library access or your university affiliation. If you're affiliated with some library, that's the way you would get into it. But there absolutely is information on genealogical information that way, but also calling directly to NSU if they have specific collections.
Yeah, Sharon?
I've been in that library, Vicki, in Aberdeen, and it's a really wonderful library. They have quite a few books, and they also have artifacts from the settlers in that area of South Dakota. So I think it'd be worth a visit just to see what they have. I don't know what information you're looking for, but I'm pretty sure that the curator, which is Robert, can't think of his last name right now. It starts with R.
Robert Russell.
Russell would easily be able to help you with that. But I wanted to say something else. When I was about 9 or 10, I wandered into the A.H. Brown Library in Aberdeen. And I was just amazed. Books, books. I had never been in a library before. And that proved to be, it was life-forming for me. Then in high school, we had to write a term paper, so we had to do research. So we went down the library of basement and looked through all this stuff. Yeah, it was the most boring, excuse me, the most boring thing in the world. Then, skipping up to the 20s, 2020, that era, I've discovered that Wolfgang Mozart had a sister by the name of Nano. Oh, wow. And I found that out simply by, I was going up north for a 2-week vacation. I needed books to read because I was going to be in a cabin that didn't have any radio, TV, or a telephone. So I needed books. And I was walking down this aisle in the library, just glancing at books like an alcoholic kind of glances at what are the bottles on
What
the
kind
shelf.
of wines?
And I saw this book, The Family Mozart. I thought, oh, Mozart had a family? Really? Mother, father? So I checked it out, and then that's how I found out he had this really gifted sister. So I was fascinated by that, and I wrote a book. It was published, her biography and poetry. So when I was looking for more information, I got a fellowship or something like that to go to the Mozarteum Library in Salzburg, which is only Mozart music. That was a wonderful experience. And I found that I liked research so much. It was so hard to tear myself from the research to actually get into the writing. So I'm a convert to research.
Yep.
Well, I think speaking back to your experience in college, if you're not interested in the topic, it can be deadly. But if you're interested in the topic, it can be all-consuming, right? Research can be glorious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one of the questions we have these 3 questions we'd like, and I forgot to mention them at the top of the hour. But what kinds of research would be useful for you? Another question is, what kinds of things would you like to know more about? And also, what does research mean to you? What does the word research mean to you? And so I'd like you to think about those questions, and we'll come back to them momentarily. Can you, Kristi, talk a little bit about some of the benefits of a library to the general public, especially ones that they might, it's not like, how can I get an A in my science class, but something that people would want to know or should know that they could find that in the library.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, we certainly have spaces for study and contemplation, that just if you need a place to come and get away. We in more for students, I would say we check out more popular books here. We also have games, like board games that would be different. We have some puzzles. We have some things like that aren't probably traditional items. We have really strange things like cuneiform tablets from thousands of years ago that you can see. Those are kind of amazing. So I don't know, I get surprised all the time. We have some art. We have Margab linens. I don't know if people are familiar with that. So that Mrs. Margab had placed her collection with our South Dakota Art Museum, but we have her papers and some books and art of hers. So, those are different. I don't know, we have a lot of crazy stuff that who would guess. We have a lot of SDSU alumni things like sweaters and, some of that kind of apparel, beanies, I don't know, things like that. So.
Right. Well, I was kind of thinking about some of the questions that Richard was bringing up, like, what was the weather patterns like in my town or the place I was born, and compared to now, or what kind of hobbies did people have then? What kind of hobbies that we could be doing now, but they just seem to, at least around here, nobody's doing that. Which kinds of cars can swap motors, things like that. There are things that people are running into every day. How is the best way to peel an onion, for example? Now, maybe that kind of question, you might be able to find even videos on YouTube or something. But it'll be interesting to see some of the tools, for example, that people use to cut onions, without crying. It's like, well, what are some of the things? So looking back, those things could give you something. So I was looking for some kind of examples like that you.
So we absolutely have the state climatologists reports. We have that collection, but also maybe getting to the peeling the onion business. We have extension publications from the South Dakota Extension Services, and we've been digitizing those. So there are thousands of them. So as we go through, but those are more and more coming online. So people could either see them in paper or they could look online for them. So that would have a lot of that kind of information. We're also, maybe, I don't know if people know or have heard of rammed earth construction. So that's something that we have some notoriety about here. And so we get people from around the world coming in and looking at the rammed earth publications. And we have some examples of those on campus. It's you push dirt together to make the walls. I don't know. So it's a different thing.
That was a thing.
That stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are the kinds of things. But also, if someone, let's say, for example, is looking for, like, let's say, an audio recording of somebody's speech or something like that, can they get a copy of that? I mean, assuming it's public domain and
right.
or licensing works out. That aside, can they come there and say, "Hey, I got my flash drive. Can I have that thing?" Can you do that?
Yeah. So we've got some grants from the South Dakota Humanities Council actually too that to allow us to get the equipment we need to convert it from very old technology and then convert it into something that is easily transportable. So, and I don't know, Michelle is on here. She would know more if we've converted some that are actually available just straight off the internet. If they did a search, I would guess mostly they're going to have her help them. So they'd say, "I'd like a copy of this," and she'd make it and send it out. So
right. And how about how about things like photographs? Can they get like a digital copy of that or something?
Yeah, we have thousands of those in the Digital Library of South Dakota. And they would say if they're available for copying, most of them would be, I think. So people can do a search there, or they could ask again our archives
Okay.
if there's photos that again Michelle maybe is aware of that aren't up already.
Okay.
We've got pictures of Brookings in our Nordby collection. I don't know. We got some glass plates recently by a photographer at the like around 1900, I think it was, that are very unique. They've been stored in a barn in some storage place, and there's just crazy stuff. And by the way, which I should mention, if you have some unique South Dakota items that need a home, you might want to check with us. And there's Michelle's put up the South Dakota Farmers Union recordings, but you might want to check with us and see if it's a collection that we would want to accept, or again, a library or museum in your region or area, you might want to, before you just throw stuff in the trash, give us a call.
Right. Sharon, you had some questions or comment?
Well, just another thing that librarians do, when I was looking for information, I didn't have enough time in Salzburg to read everything, but I came back to the United States, and I really wanted a copy of this particular book. And I went to the local librarian, and she, of course, did not carry it. But I don't know the chain of being, but there were only 4 copies of the book in the United States, and I got 1 copy for a month from Kentucky someplace, probably the University of Kentucky. I mean, that's really great work, chain work, to try to get you what you're looking for.
So interlibrary loan, we call it interlibrary loan.
Mhm.
And you would probably need to go to your local public library to do that, and which I'm guessing that's what you did, Sharon. But yes, the libraries have a very elaborate system in place. It's typically free to the patron, anything that they want to look for. And going back to the family history question, I was helping a person that was trying to do family history. We found 1 copy of a book about a family member that was located in the archives in, I think it was Portland or Seattle. And it was out of copyright, so they were able to make a copy and send it. But there was 1 copy in the world of this whole thing, and so libraries are going to bend over backwards to help you try to get the information you need.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent, excellent. Vicki?
I think I'm confused. How do I know which library to go to? Are you in direct communication with the state library? Are you under that, or are you alongside it? Since every library has a little bit different areas, how would I know whether to call the state library or you or Northern if I had a question? How would I?
So I would probably suggest, so calling the state library probably won't help you at all, because they don't really work one-on-one with patrons. They support the libraries in the state. So public, school, and academic libraries, they support us. We can get things, so they license things that are available through our databases. So going to your closest library, I would suggest. So if you have a public library in your area, I would start there. The reason to go to a university library in person is if they have some collections you can't get at any other way. So if Northern has some genealogy things that you can't get somewhere, then it's worth a trip to go there. Or if they have things you want to look at specifically without having the intermediary of the interlibrary loan. But I would guess your public library can help you locate, either get things for you or tell you it's better if you go there in person. So I don't know if that's helping or not, but.
Well, Lanik, I think, were you satisfied with your answer, Vicky? I was
Or
gonna go.
we can talk afterwards too, if you want.
I just have some confusion still. I'm old. What can I say?
No. I
Yeah.
think your question is, if you have confusion, probably someone else has
Yeah.
confusion too. And we're just pretending like we're not confused. But the thing is, you know, if you have a question, I think what we're saying is go to the place closest to you, the library that's closest to you, and then work backwards from there. If they can't help you, ask them, well, who can? And if they say, I don't know, then you go to the next largest library, you know, like a regional library, like Watertown or Aberdeen. And if they can't help you, then you go to the university libraries. I think that's kind of
Well,
straightforward.
let me ask it this way. How is South Dakota SDSU library different from the state library?
Yeah, so the state library serves the libraries. So they do training for librarians. They license a certain group of resources that they make available through the libraries. So they don't really support patrons individually. And this is where unless you're blind, and then they have a service directly for blind people where they send out audio things for the blind and vision impaired people. So South Dakota State University, as well as the other university libraries, our primary emphasis is our students and faculty, but we also welcome patrons to come in the door and we would help them. The public library is usually the first place for people, particularly if you just want, you know, fun reading, that kind of stuff. They would have real basic research materials available. The stuff that the state library license, you can get through the public library, absolutely. In fact, much of what they license is targeted for public library people. But if you're doing in-depth research or looking for really unique things, then you're going to want to go to the university library. But I think, like Lauren said, starting at the closest library to you and talking with them about what you're interested in, they can point you in the right direction.
Laniko, you had a question.
Yes, I did. I still do.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was working on a project that the person supposedly had not, the person I was writing a review for, about, I should say, about her work, had not supposedly published anything. Well, in the course of my doing some looking for what she had done, I discovered she had written a book, and I went on a search for it, and friends helped me at SDSU, and I gave the title to several other people. I think I may have even been on South Dakota Humanities Council with that same title. And I have yet to find anybody who's been able to find that book. Well, I take that back. One person did find that there is a copy at a library in England. And so one of the professors, I think he's retired now, offered to follow up on that because he had contact there to make sure I was able to get the book. But I have never heard anything back from that. And I'm going to throw the title and the name of the author out again in case somebody is fortunate enough to come across it. The name of the book, which was written by Mary Sully.
Oh.
The book is 26 River Creatures Tell Their Life Stories. And it was intended as a children's book, which she illustrated. And I have yet to find anyone who has been able to find that book.
Well, Michelle Christian, our archivist, saw in the chat, she's interested already. So I'm sure she'll try to hunt it down.
Yeah. So go
Sounds
over
like
and
a good one.
see Michelle. Yeah. Well, I want to give an opportunity for folks to talk about some of the questions that we pose to you too. What kind of research would be useful to you? Not necessarily a topic, but a kind of topic, what kind of research? And if you have a topic, that's a thing too, but what kind of research can you think would be useful to you or someone you know and love? Richard?
Well, I finished this one book and now I'm going to make a series out of it, which is going to put me right in the middle of the dirty 30s in northern South Dakota. And everybody knows how wonderful a time that was. But Lawrence, you brought up something that is intriguing to me. What were the hobbies? When you weren't sitting there scratching in dry dirt trying to stay alive, what did you do? And my biggest thing that I've been doing with that is reading fiction from the time, because that gives you a flavor of how people thought. But I want to try to dig into that a little deeper, and I'm probably going to start with the Ag Museum and some of the folks over there, maybe even Dakota Prairie Museum, and see what those folks know, and maybe Northern. But those things intrigue me, because that's the stuff that makes fiction books fun, is you have to have a little bit of life in it from the time, and what churches were the most prevalent at the time. And I'm sure Vicky, you've seen that too, because of the Russian German influence. But so that would be one of the things that I would be looking for. And I can't start with my little I could start with my little library in Redfield. Sarah's a wonderful lady, but she's going to point me somewhere else. And, I may even go to KOLE up in Aberdeen, because that's a county library. That's fairly hefty, and they've got great people. But I may wind up talking to Kristi before this whole thing's over, before I get done with my second novel. So
we'll point you to Michelle.
Yeah.
Or one of her co-conspirators.
I'll talk to Kristi and she'll say, talk to Michelle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But just a word about hobbies. I find things like hobbies are terribly informative to who people really are as a culture. Lots of people do that. And also as an individual, the kind of things people have for their hobbies really speaks to them often more than their job, because their job usually is what they have to do. The hobby is what they want to do. And so that gives a lot of insight into the kind of person that you're talking to. Laniko, you had another question, comment? Are you there?
Yes, I just wanted to say, you asked the question about what interests me, and over the years, I have been asked so many questions about what life was like before the river was dammed. And so I have been kind of preoccupied with everything having to do with the Missouri River. And I would like nothing more than to spend a lot of time in a place where I might be able to get geographical information, sociological information, even biological and having to do with plant changes as well. So yeah, you asked that question, so I thought I'd share that. And I don't know how to get rid of my lowered hand here.
That's all right. I'll just give you a high five and then
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have some kind of research that they might find useful, things that they might want to know? Vicky?
I was trying to look something up. On Facebook, there's a guy who collects photographs and people submit them to him for South Dakota. And I don't know who that is. Maybe that would help Lamiko. Do you know who it is, Richard?
Well, I believe there's a gentleman by the name of Donovan Sprague, and he has been collected Native American photographs for quite some time. He's put out several books of those particular photographs. There's not much of any kind of ethnographic information related to those photographs, and there's also names missing for many of them. So that's one of the individuals that I did locate, and I know of him through the Oak Lake Writers Society. And there's another gentleman who had a large collection, and that this is Larry Ness, I believe it is, from Yankton. And I believe a lot of people know who he is because he's associated with a bank down there, a reliable bank, I believe. But anyway, those are two people.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know him. I know about Elliot Ness, but not that guy. Anyone else? What kinds of things would you like to know more about?
You know how much of an open question that is, Lawrence.
Yes, it's a real open question, but it's really it's pointed at let your mind think about, oh, all those things that you swept under the carpet because you think, well, I don't know how to find that out, and I'm not going to like torture myself by letting myself keep thinking about it. But now that you know that, hey, there's this library that can share that burden with you. It's like if you don't know something and a question pops up, and they're not open at 3 a.m, but if you could write it down and then wait till later when they do open, you might be able to get some answers to that question. And sometimes it's just a phone call. And when you think about how valuable that service is, it really says that we need to make sure that we all support libraries. Not just the ones at State, South Dakota State, but libraries in general. Knowledge is power, personal power. It's like that's the way that you amplify your head and make things make sense to you. And it's a resource for information. So you don't really have to give up so easily on something you're thinking about. Look at how other people have like discussed and argued about those things, and you get both sides and you're out of it. You just, but librarians can help you find that. That's the point of that question, is to open up the whole possibilities of how smart you can appear, even if you're not smart. If you start studying, you'll look smart, and then eventually you'll be smart, even if you're not now. We're getting near our time. We got about 3 minutes, and so I want to give Kristi the kind of the last few minutes. Are there any things, Kristi, that you would like to cover? Because I know we had a whole list of stuff that we didn't get to, but are there things that you would like to cover and talk about that we didn't get to?
I think I just want to thank everybody for participating. And I was thinking about the comment made earlier about walking down the shelves and seeing all these voices, these people, that you can interact with, and kind of going back to what would you like to research? Sometimes just walking down the shelves is, amazing. Like, wow, I never thought about that. So appreciate everybody's support for libraries, on any level, school, public, or university, but also we love having you come in the building. We love seeing people, and partly because we love so many subject areas, we love to hear what everybody's researching. We just find it fascinating, to at least get a snapshot. So stop by, call, make use of us. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention something else. We've been talking about printed materials, some, like books, but they're also like things like magazines, journals, and as Kristi was saying, sometimes just give yourself, let's say, an hour out of a month and just go wander through the library. Or one of my favorite things to do, because I'm kind of lazy, is go to the encyclopedia and just randomly pull out an encyclopedia and thumb through it, and amazing what kinds of rabbit holes you can go down in terms of knowledge. And then suddenly, as I said earlier, it's like a fantasy world. All the things that I realized I didn't know even that they existed, let alone know them, didn't even know about them. But suddenly there's this ever-ending, how to say it, there's turtles all the way down. I mean, this completely, an open green field, as they say in the architectural industry. So I want to encourage all of you to take a look at your local library. Are there any other librarians on this call?
I am
Oh.
director of Gregory Public Library.
Okay, great. And I'm going to assume that's in Gregory, since that's the name of it.
Yes.
Yeah, good. And I assume you guys know each other, Kristi and Tara?
Meet each
We
other
do
at
not.
maybe,
No.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, that brings us actually to the end of our program here today. I want to encourage you, go visit Tara. And you know, if you're up near Gregory, there are some wonderful libraries. Someone already mentioned the KLE library in Aberdeen. There's also the library in Watertown. Those guys are like fantastic, very nice, helpful, friendly. You know, I don't think they allow them to wear those little bun things anymore, so they look friendly. You know, but yeah, we'll see you next week, the brand new show, and we'll learn more stuff.
Thank you, Lawrence. Appreciate it.
You bet.